Well met. Hello, I am Bryce from the Nexus team, here with a new podcast series where we will explore the game of Hearthstone. We'll be looking at different cards, different strategies, and mechanics of the game. Everything to do with Hearthstone. We're going to also have some other series break off, but for now we're just going to talk a little bit about a few cards that me and my partner Andrew like. Andrew, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. So I know personally I've played Hearthstone pretty much every single day since it was released. I've played through every expansion. I've pre-ordered most of them. I mean, I have a pretty good collection, so I'm very familiar with most of the cards. How are you with your Hearthstone experience?
Well, I'm no played since beta person. I did play. I played way back when the game first started a little bit, and then I sort of just dropped off like a rock. It was just, I don't know. But then I recently think about what was it? Mean Streets? No. What was the one right before Mean Streets?
Whispers of the Old Gods.
Yeah, it was at the end of Whispers of the Old Gods. I came back, and I've been playing semi-regular, but I'd still be widely regarded as a casual player. My deck lists are nothing special.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's been in that position before. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are in that position. I definitely have devoted quite a lot of time to the game myself, but it's nice to have someone on who's maybe not as dedicated as I am to kind of give more of that newer player experience rather than someone who has spent a decent amount of money on the game. So anyway, today, as our inaugural episode, I'd just like to kind of do more of a introduction episode, and I'd like to just discuss a few of the cards that we really enjoy from the new expansion, Journey to Un'Goro, just so that listeners and viewers will be able to kind of see how we play the game and kind of what our cards are, kind of get an influence on how we play the game personally. So I'll just start off with one of my favorites that has definitely led me through more than a few games. It's currently in my most played deck, I think, at the time. Of course, I'm talking about Kalamos, the Primal Lord. It's the Shaman Legendary. It's not the quest, of course, but it is a 7 mana, or an 8 mana 7/7. And its effect is that if you played an elemental on the previous turn, then you can cast one of 4 effects. That being the evocation of Earth, which fills your board with 1/1 elementals. The invocation of Fire, which just deals 6 damage to your opponent's face. The invocation of Water, which heals your hero for 12. And then the one I probably use the most is the invocation of Air, which deals 3 damage to all of the enemy minions. Kalamos is probably my favorite card of the expansion, just because of how flexible it is and giving you pretty much 4 different abilities you can use in whatever situation you're in. It is a pretty expensive card, but being the deck that it is, Elemental Shaman is usually able to survive even through aggro decks decently well, and having that extra board clear or that extra heal with Kalamos has won me so many games. Sometimes the hunter's just about to run out of steam and you throw Kalamos down, you heal for 12, and then they're powerless. You have a full board or a few taunts and they can't do anything against you. I'm not sure if you've had any experience playing against him or not, if you have any input.
Surprisingly, no. That is one of the few legendaries that I have not run across. I've not seen a single Kalamos. The only Kalamos I've seen is when I've been playing against you. Even though I've seen a ton of elemental shaman decks, I don't know if it's just pure luck on my end for not having to face the avatar of shaman kind, but I haven't had any dealings with them. I mean, elemental shaman on its own is strong enough, but this is just sort of icing on the cake.
Yeah, and actually, to be honest, going against other elemental shamans, I don't see him too often either, which surprises me, just because I think it is just such a powerful card to have in your deck, and it fits so well with the theme. And usually, my servants of Calamos, I just try to get more Calamoses out of the deck, just because they have just a limitless amount of value. The more you get, like pretty much every game that I've had trouble with, if I won that game, it was because it was on the back of Calamos. And like, yeah, and I'm surprised, like you said, I haven't seen too many either. I don't face too many elemental shamans, but the ones I do face either never draw it or just don't have it. I mean, I've played against a few, and I've definitely lost against a few as well, but just coming from someone who relies on that card so much in one of my most played decks, it's pretty surprising to me. Is there any card that you think can put Calamos up for his money?
Well, I mean, for pure terms of power, I'm sure that there are a few, but one of my favorites that I think is right up with Calamos in terms of flexibility and in the way that it can change the game is Lyra, the Sun Shard. It's the Priest Legendary that's not the quest. And it's a 5 mana, 3/5, and her effect is whenever you cast a spell, you add a random priest spell to your hand. So it's RNG, which I know a lot of people, it's a very polarizing topic. You know, people either love it or hate it. You know, but I'm on the end that I really enjoy the RNG. It keeps the game fun and interesting for me, and as a free-to-play player and everything like that, this was also one of my legendaries that I've only had the pleasure of actually playing with, because through the I can't remember how many they gave out, but Blizzard was kind enough to give a few packs out for the launch. And so I got Lyra out of those packs, and no other legendaries. So, but one of the good things I like about it is she has RNG, yes, but it's controlled RNG. Like a lot of other ones, a lot of problems that I think players have with RNG is it's hard or impossible to plan for, deal with. You know, when you're dealing with something like the dreaded, like pirate warrior, you know what to deal with. You know that they're going to just go for your face over and over. So you then know how to deal with them, because you know how to put cards in your deck and build against that threat. But the problem with RNG decks and the problem with stuff like Discover from last expansion, even though it was a really cool idea, it opened up the possibilities a little bit too much, to the point where you could be facing like a priest, but you don't know, and more importantly, the person playing it doesn't know whether or not they're going to be able to discover a really awesome mage or warlock ability. And that's the thing, is there's a reason that there are class-specific cards, because there are certain scenarios where having, like, okay, if you have, like, imagine a taunt warrior with the Divine Spirit, I believe it's Divine Spirit priest card that doubles their health.
Yes.
Yeah. Imagine a taunt warrior with that in their deck. That is auto concede right there.
Yeah, you get one of those Tar Lords, throw that on it, and pretty cheese unless they have hard removal.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is if you do that, then people have to run hard removal, but the problem with RNG that spans more classes is you don't know whether or not they're going to have access to that because even they don't know how to. So it becomes very hard to play against. But so that's why I like that it specifies it to a priest spell. That way you know that no matter what sort of shenanigans is going to happen, it's at least controlled shenanigans.
Yeah, and that's definitely something I appreciate about the card as well, especially in a class like Priest where they don't really have too many offensive spells to begin with. So you're not going to be taking fireballs to the face, you're not going to be getting frost bolts, you're not going to be getting, a lot of damage abilities. Pretty much going to be reactive spells that you're going to get, such as the Priest buffs and heals that doesn't really stop your opponent from playing the game anymore. It just makes it harder for them to win, which is definitely something I like. Now, of course, you know there are a few Priest cards that do damage, like Mind Blast, and you got Dragonfire Potion and Holy Nova, but those are either high cost or also hurt the Priest. Now, besides Mind Blast, which I don't necessarily have a problem with because that's just one spell, and to get it randomly out of all the Priest spells that you could get, it's not a huge chance, so you can't really build a deck around that.
Exactly.
Now, and also, sorry, I also just want to say that Lyra was a card that I personally was also very excited for, but on other streams from other popular streamers like Kriparian and Trump, most people didn't really give Lyra any sort of attention because it was just random spells for a priest. It was kind of expensive, and I just want to say how incredible it is that even some people who play the game on a professional level can still be wrong about certain cards.
Oh yeah, it certainly lends a lot of life to the game where even the professionals or even the game developers can be proven wrong.
Yeah, that's one thing I like about the game, is that you never really know how it's going to end up, especially during the reveals. Did you have anything else you wanted to add about Lyra the Sunshard?
No, other than it is a fantastic card and my personal favorite of the legendaries.
Alright, we'll move on to another one of my favorites, which is going to have to be the second Elise card, Elise the Trailblazer. Definitely had a lot of fun with this card. Again, this was a card that most people kind of assumed was like pretty much just a control deck. Probably wasn't going to be too super great because you just get 5 random cards from the pack that she spawns. But this is a card that I enjoy just because of its incredible value. Yeah, a lot of the times it may not be game winning or game breaking, but the times it does, it is a ton of fun. Actually, just recently in Arena, I drafted an Elise in my deck, and the first game I played against a hunter. He was pretty aggro. He had a lot of 1 cost and 2 cost, but I was able to survive. And by turn 4, I got Mimic Pod, and so I threw my Mimic Pod out, got 2 Elises, and then eventually throughout the game I played both of them. And so I had 2 packs, and from the first pack I got another Elise, and then played it. The next turn I drew another pack, and was actually lucky enough to get another Elise. So here I am. I'm just getting incredible value just from all these Elises and all these packs. I think it's like it is a very heavy RNG card, and in ranked, it does seem pretty let Jesus take the wheel, because by that game, if it's not against a control deck, then you either like need those cards because your opponent's burning you down pretty hard. So you're just kind of hoping for a taunt or a heal or some kind of board clear, and it's just kind of one of those cards that can win games that you shouldn't be able to win. But in control games is my favorite because it's so fun going back and forth, opening packs, just getting a little extra value out of the packs and getting cards from other classes that may not necessarily work in your deck, but they definitely work for the moment that you're in.
Yeah, and I mean, this is one of those ones that I know a lot of people have been using it, but it also goes with that sort of polarizing RNG mindset, because you don't, because it's very, how do I want to put it? It's very hard to guess what's going to happen. Like, you don't know if, like, much like if you're just playing the game and getting cards on your own, you don't know if that next pack that you get is going to have an Elise or some other legendary. Um, so, but it's also, to me, it's that unknown factor that makes cards like this so much fun. It's not necessarily a good competitive option, although just the idea of having 5 extra cards widening, or not 5.
Yeah, it's 5.
Oh, it is 5. Okay, yeah, shows how much I know. But 5 extra cards in your deck, that's a whole, like, 6th of the deck. So you can have quite a bit, and I know that one of the popular decks that features Elise as an actual, like, non-hokey option is actually the Priest, but they use it in combination with Shadow Visions, which allows you to discover a copy of a spell in your deck. So you just play the Elise and play Shadow Visions, and then you can actually get combinations of that. You can get, if you're lucky, you could get up to 3 different of the pack cards, or pack, the cards. That's 15 cards. That's a whole half of a deck if you do it right. And I mean, if you're really, really lucky, and you could do it with Lyra, get the Shadow Visions, and then you can do that. But that's like a lot of RNG.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I'm sure somewhere, somehow, that has happened where you've gotten it to the point that you can actually get an entire secondary deck.
Yeah, and actually one of the more popular streamers, Brian Kibler, he created a deck that does just that, and it relies on Lyra spawning extra Shadow Visions, so he gets extra packs, and pretty much just gets another random deck added to his cards. And in a control matchup where you pretty much go until the first person runs out of cards, that is just an insane amount of value and will win games on its own.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right. So what other cards are you running right now?
One of my personal favorites that I'm running in my Murloc Shaman deck is the Spirit Echo. That was one that I initially actually sort of passed up. I just sort of like saw it. I was like, oh, okay, that's all right. For those of you who don't know, it's a 3-mana shaman spell that gives your minions Death Rattle. Return this to your hand. So it basically just gives your entire board a second life. It's one of those deceptively simple things where you have it, you read it, but then as you look more and more into your deck, you see more and more possibilities. And it's one of those cards that rewards skilled decisions, because obviously the longer you wait, the bigger board that you have, the more value you get out of the card. You could, if you really want to keep on to like a war leader, or warband leader Murloc, if you like really want to keep on to that for whatever reason, then you could just play that and Spirit Echo in one turn. But if you read your opponent, read what they possibly could have in terms of board clear, you could actually hold on a bit, and then you get him plus a couple of other Murlocs, and you increase the value of the card exponentially. And in terms of board clear on the opponent's side, it also gives yourself more pressure, which is infinitely useful in a shaman deck, because shaman decks they're all about pressure, but they're not they're not as pressure heavy as other aggro decks. It's one of the reasons that they're not played as much as other aggro decks, because they kind of have that weird middle ground where they're not super aggressive, so they lose out to the super aggressive, but they also don't have a whole lot of late game potential, so they kind of fall in that middle ground. Despite that, I love the death to deck for whatever reason. But it's an amazing card because it removes the pressure of board clear from your opponent. You don't have to worry so much about getting everything out and making sure it stays out, because you have the second chance and you can waste some of their board clear while doing that.
Yeah, and Spirit Echoes is one of the cards that I was super excited and super afraid of when they first released it. It's a card that I love the effect, and I love kind of being able to give yourself an extra set of minions, especially ones that you put in your deck specifically. It's not random. But one thing I was scared of that I don't believe has come to fruition is, at the time, Jade decks were running rampant, and mid-range Jade Shaman wasn't a top tier deck, but it was tier 2 deck, but it's still seen pretty commonly in the lower tiers and around the 10 tier area. And I was scared that it was going to give so much more ammo to the Jade decks, because you could slap down an Aya on turn 5 or some Jade Spirits, or maybe you played a Jade Spirit and then Aya, and then if you weren't able to clear it, then you're going to get an Aya back and another Jade Spirit back. That's actually 3 more after the second Aya's death, and that's just going to give so much more Jade pressure to pretty much an era where the only control deck was Jade Druid. So I was kind of scared that it was going to overpower the Jade Shaman deck, which obviously it hasn't happened, because I haven't really seen too many Jade Shamans besides a few mid-range ones and a couple here and there. But I know it's a deck that I tried out and I did have a lot of success towards the beginning of the expansion. But that's one of the cards that I was certainly a little scared of, but no one else seemed to really think it was too powerful. But like you said, throwing it on Murlocs in a Murloc deck is incredibly valuable, especially the buffing Murlocs, because you can rebuff your minions. You get the one that gives 2 health to all your minions, give it to them again after they've wiped the board. They're not going to have another board wipe strong enough to deal with +2 health on all your minions.
Exactly, and I think it does work wonderfully in a Jade deck, especially if you can get you can last later on into a game. 8 mana, or not 8 mana, I'm sorry, 9 mana for both Aya and Spirit Echo just on its own. You get Aya with the possibility of playing her again. That's 4 steps up the the Jade ladder, so to speak. That can be devastating for someone. Especially something like a Jade Shaman that's more kind of geared towards the mid-range, like you were saying, and it sort of lends a little bit. If you play it correctly, it sort of lends a little bit more to its late game presence, similar to a Jade Druid, but obviously not to the crazy late game degree that they have. But it definitely works very well with minions that have it works well with really any minion, but it works especially well with something with powerful battle cries, or death rattles themselves having an extra death rattle. One of the cases being the reward for the quest, the Murloc quest, which is Primal Fin, which it fills your entire hand with Murlocs. So if you can get to a scenario that you can play Spirit Echo on top of your Primal Fin, you have 2 entire hands full of Murlocs. And the Primal Fin on its own sort of fixed the problem that I had with Murlocs pre-Ungoro, which was the deck just ran out of steam with no real benefit to it. But having that on the Spirit Echo on top of it, it just sort of kind of seals the deal for me.
Yeah, and that value for a Murloc deck is definitely something incredibly powerful. And I'm sure they had that in mind when they created the card. But yeah, and then actually, I've never actually thought about using it with Primal Fin, mainly because I don't do a whole lot of Murloc decks because I'm horrendous at playing them. But that was something, because I always kind of saw it the other way. It was like, okay, I have a handful of Murlocs and I'll play all those, and then I'll Spirit Echo all the Murlocs I played afterwards. But if you can get that Primal Fin in there, that's just such an incredible value. And that Primal Fin only costing 5 mana, it's easy to play him and Spirit Echo on the same turn.
Exactly. And like you said, I'm sure they had it in mind, because, I mean, the actual art is just Murlocs everywhere.
Alright, well, so a lot of you may be thinking, so pretty much all you guys talk about is legendary cards and then the one epic. So are there any cool cards for players who may not have the privilege of getting such high rarity cards? And my last card I really want to talk about is the Tar Creeper, which is a 3 mana 1/5 taunt that on your opponent's turn it has +2 attack, so it's a 3/5. And the reason I love this card so much is it's finally an answer that a lot of people have been wanting, is that you need an early game minion that can stop aggro decks, but cannot also be used in aggro decks. So that's been a problem throughout most of Hearthstone's life, is that any anti-aggro card they might try to add is also helps aggro. So cards like this, to a lesser extent, you got the Void Terror and like a Zulok. While it's also, a 1 attack, it's also a 1 mana minion, but it also protects all the other minions. And having 3 health that early in the game is hard for a lot of classes, unless they have direct removal, to get rid of the 1/3 to attack the more powerful minions. But Tar Creeper being 3 mana means it's too slow for a lot of aggro decks, but it's not powerful enough to run at 3 mana because it can only attack with one attack point with it. It does not have 3 attack on your turn. So pretty much what that means is it's great for defending and awful for attacking, which is exactly what a lot of people like. And a lot of people have wanted for the game, just to slow it down. And I definitely think Ungoro slowed down the meta quite a bit. There's still a couple aggro decks, but for general, it's moved more towards the mid-range, and even there's a few viable control decks at this point. And just like all the creepers, there is the one in Warlock, and then there's the one in Warrior as well, which work pretty much the same. They start with 1 attack, and then the Warlock has 7 life and gains 3 attack, and then the Warrior has 11 life and gains 4 attack. But the good thing is that most of the time when this card is played, it just stalls the game, because you can't attack into it, because that's 3 attack. That's just going to kill all your minions in an aggro deck, and it's going to take out 2 or 3 before you can kill it. And pretty much when you have it and your opponent has a board, unless they have any 1 health minions, you're not going to attack, because it's not going to be able to kill anything. So what it does for a lot of either mid-range or control decks is it stalls the game out just a little bit so that they're able to get their later game tools. Now, this being a common and being one of the most popular cards in the expansion, I'm sure you've experienced this, Andrew. What do you think about the Tar Creeper?
I think the Tar Creeper and all the creepers in general are I don't know, is it too early, too much to say they're the unsung heroes of this expansion? They're very, like you said, it was a not rare, but it was a stroke of genius for Blizzard in game design for this. It is the perfect answer to what you said a lot of players have been asking for a long time. I do believe that that Blizzard was also trying to accomplish a slower meta with the quest basically just eliminating turn 1, but I think that cards like this, the Creeper, do a far better job at slowing down the meta, and it's a far smarter way than like quests in terms of slowing down the meta. And it's very it's a very unique way of handling a problem, where we've had cards like this before that are similar, like ones that have like low mana costs, but they have like very high defense. Like there's a 0/7, and there's ones that have like 1 and 5 and stuff like that. But nothing quite like this. It's one of those ones where all the factors that you've said, the mana, the having just enough attack to trade, but also not giving you the control over it, very much stalls out the game just enough that it makes it a very good anti-aggro tool.
Yeah, and a lot of people are playing it for sure. I'm pretty sure I've seen it in almost every like slower competitive deck, just because of the value it adds. And the fact, just personally coming from someone who plays Elemental Shaman a lot, the fact that it is an Elemental aids my deck a whole lot, especially against like the new Hunter decks where it just throw a bunch of beasts down and do a bunch of damage, or even still Pirate Warrior every so often, and it just devastates those decks when I throw that down. If they don't have anything to remove that quickly, then it stalls the game out long enough to where I can throw down my Hot Springs Guardians, get some health back, throw some more taunts, maybe get my Spirit Wolves out, and just helps me get past the point where their small minions are going to threaten me to an extent to where late game I don't even stand a chance. So you talked a little bit about quests, and this is one thing that I, of course, want to talk about just a little bit separately, but also the same theme. What is your favorite quest out of the expansion?
Well, for me, it's got to be the Murloc ones. Like I said, it turned me from a person who absolutely hated the Murlocs to someone who loves them. That has got to be my favorite one. What about you?
My favorite is actually one that is seen as kind of the middle ground and quest level. I really enjoyed the Priest quest. It was the first quest I crafted, the only quest I got out of my pre-purchase packs, and the gold I had saved up was the Murloc one, actually, which at the time, and still I'm not a huge Murloc player. It's something that I've just not been able to do very well. So I was super, it was one of the very first cards that they revealed was the Priest quest, and I thought, okay, well, with Reno Jackson moving out, that's a big card for survivability in a lot of the decks. And Priest, it just fits the Priest theme so well of just having a lot of health. And it's also got taunt, so it's great at just preserving, which Priest pretty much has always been about stalling out to the late game and then dropping some big bombs to finish off your opponent. And this quest fits so well. Now the quest is obviously a 1 mana, and the condition is play 7 or summon 7 Death Rattles, and then you get the reward, which is Amara, Warden of Hope, which is an 5 mana 8/8 taunt that sets your life total to 40, no matter what it sets. If that's 1, if it's at 25, it'll just set it at 40, and it stays at 40. So if you take 12 damage, you can still heal back up to 40, so it doesn't just temporarily set it to 40. What I like about this quest is it fills the shoes of Reno Jackson without giving it so much power to the other classes like Warlock, who, although the Reno Lock was a pretty difficult and skillful deck to play, it pretty much made the deck possible. And just kind of replacing Reno, which was a pretty well-liked deck just because it allowed control decks to still be in the meta. This kind of fills its shoes, but only for Priest, which is personally my favorite class to play anyway, so I don't really have any problems. But what it does is, along with a lot of the good death rattles that they added to the Priest class, it just makes it a really fun way to kind of play some stuff throughout the game and not have to worry about, okay, well, if I don't play enough impactful stuff, then they're just going to roll over me and I'm going to die. But what this does is I play it in combination with a few dragon cards just to get that extra dragon value, but also cards like the new Crystalline Oracle, which gives you has a death rattle that gives you a random card from your opponent's class when it dies, and also the Tortolan Shell Raiser, probably.
Yeah, I think it's Shell Raiser.
Yeah, which pretty much is a 4-mana 2/6 taunt with a death rattle. It gives a friendly minion +1/+1, which is incredibly powerful in that deck. And pretty much it gets a lot of value from the Crystalline Oracles, also the Shifting Shades if you include those. It gives you a lot of extra cards from your opponent's class, which, priest cards are pretty limiting, as pretty much their only board clears either is a 5-mana Holy Nova, which only does 2 damage, which is pretty weak, or the Dragonfire Potion, which also affects your board. It can give you access to some pretty good board clear, some pretty good other removal spells, or just decent spells in general from the opponent's class. And it's such a high value deck that if you're able to, live the dream, get the quest done, have 40 life, have all these extra cards, throw in Elise, get some extra packs, do some Shadow Visions, and also if they get past all that, you can throw N'Zoth down and get a whole new board because your deck is centered around Death Rattle anyway. It's just such a fun deck that when you get everything to go off, it's just one of the best feelings in the game, I think.
No, for sure. I love that. For me is one of the reasons that I play Hearthstone as much as I do, is the having those big wow moments, the big gimmicky, I will play decks that are just super gimmicky. I've got a deck, a priest deck, that is just completely just steal your opponent's cards. Is it good? Hell no. It is absolutely terrible, but it's fun, and that to me is what matters. Same thing with my most played deck of this expansion, the Murloc Shaman, the Quest Shaman. It's not as good at aggro as other ones, it's not as good as control as the other ones, it's a nice middle ground, but I make it work. And it's fun playing those minions that have such synergy with each other, and trying to figure out what to play when, even though sometimes mana dictates what you play for you, but for the most part, you get to have fun with it, which is the main. It's the main reason we all play games. I like to think is to have fun.
Yeah, I agree. Hearthstone's one. I won't lie to anyone. I'm not the most competitive player. I can get to around 8 to 10 pretty much every month if I try. I may be able to get more ahead, but I don't really care that much too. But my main thing is I like to just make decks. I almost never net deck unless there's just a deck that I see is really interesting that I'll play. But most of the time I just build my own deck, centered around whatever I want, some gimmicky stuff. I had a lot of fun with Lyra. I had a lot of fun doing different stuff with the Rogue Quest or the Rogue Legendary. I made a lot of Sharazin decks that kind of is a miracle, but also focuses on spell damage. Has all this stuff going on, which almost it's not a very successful deck. I probably have a 40% win rate on it, but it's a lot of fun when I can get the things to go off how I want them to. When I get all those extra petals, throw down my gadgets in, throw down my kobolds that give it more damage, throw those down, then maybe with all those 1-mana spells, I can get a questing adventurer, get that up real high, and sometimes, a lot of times it doesn't work out if they take out a few of my key cards, or just our taunt warrior, which you can't win with specialized decks for the most part. I have a lot of fun just playing the game kind of how I want to, without taking it too competitively and without worrying about winning too much. And that's also one of the reasons I play Hearthstone so much. It's just the amount of fun you can have the game when you don't take it so seriously. So let's just to wrap this up. That was just kind of a little insight into how we play the game, our methods, and how we view the game as a whole. Like I said, I'm not a super competitive player, but I have played for a long time. I do have a lot of experience, and in the future we plan to do, I do a lot of arena. We plan to do an arena run where Andrew is more of a beginner to arena, where I can kind of show him the differences that you'd want to draft between the built format and arena.
I'm just going to warn you right now, I am absolutely terrible. I'm god awful. I tried one the other day. I went 0-3, like not even a competition. So you definitely have your hands full with that.
Oh, don't worry. And actually, lately I haven't had so much luck. You typically around when Angora launched and before that, I was able to get 5 to 6 wins pretty consistently with getting 7 and 8 and 9 somewhat regularly. Actually, lately though, I've been only getting around 3 wins. So maybe we'll be able to learn a little from each other. Because I think this expansion I've just kind of not completely understood the arena meta game, if you will. But yeah, just we're planning on doing some more podcasts. Starting out bi-weekly, moving towards weekly once we get more stable schedules. But also be sure to look out for fun series, such as we're going to try and build a deck with pretty much one thing we're going for, one quest, if you will, where maybe we only build a deck with human characters. Maybe we try to win without playing anything and for the first 4 turns, crazy stuff like that. We want to try and see how far we can get with some of these crazy self-inflicting pain decks. So have fun watching us be miserable while we do that. And just a shout out to
I love masochism.
yeah, and I'm pretty excited for that, because as a game I take pretty just not seriously at all. I'm sure I will also begin to get pretty grumpy. But so just a shout out for our other guys over doing Heroes of the Storm podcast. They're going strong. We just did a 5v5 that I took part of, where we actually raised money for Extra Life. We raised, I'm not sure how much money, but it went towards the Riley Children's Hospital in Indianapolis, where I think we're all in Indiana. But we plan on doing events like that in the future. They're starting a new series called We Try Our Best, where they come up with zany team comps and try and win with. The first episode they did all stealth heroes, so maybe next time they'll try all supports. Gonna do a lot of fun stuff over there, and just let you know, just like and subscribe, and you'll get access to all that content when it comes out. Anything you want to add, Andrew?
Nothing else on my part. I think you got it. I just want to wish everyone else a good day. Once again, like, comment, and all that stuff. And keep on enjoying all the Hearthstone. Hope you guys are enjoying the expansion as much as we are.
Alright, and see you all out there in the Nexus, guys.